Alright, I bought this thing used a couple of years ago, and the first rainstorm, it started to run really rough. So I immediately went out, bought new spark plug wires, spark plugs, cap and rotor. Saw that there was some oil in the cap, so I cleaned that all out. And then it ran fine for a while, but guess what? It started to run rough again after the next rainstorm. So I went and bought another set of spark plug wires and corrected the problem for a while. And then I still noticed there was some oil in the distributor. So I tried replacing. There's a ring. You can take the distributor out just by loosening the bolt, that one bolt, and pull the whole thing out. And just remember which way the notch goes. It's either 0 or 180. It's kind of hard to make a mistake putting it back in. And you'll see there's an O-ring at the end on that shaft after you take the distributor out. So I did that. And then I still was getting some oil, so then I found a rebuild kit. It wasn't too bad, and I was able to rebuild it. So then I thought, okay, and then it started running pretty good for a while. But then it started to run rough again. So I said, oh man, it can't be spark plug wire. So I took it to the Toyota dealership, and well, before I took it to the Toyota dealership, I noticed when I took the throttle sensor thing off, it would run, it would idle better. But then I was losing acceleration. I tried isolating all the wires, just as much as I could. I was spraying wire dry on all the wires. Then I took it to the Toyota dealership, and I was prepared to pay the $90 an hour. Well, after an hour, they wanted to keep it more. I said, no way. So then, so he said he did find some arcing in the spark plug wires. I'm like, oh, come on, how can that be? So I went and got the best, wrote on here, Bosch, and ran fine, great for a while, but then it started running rough again. I'm like, what is going on? So I kept spraying wire dry on it, and I'm thinking, okay, is my wires too thin? Am I getting too much voltage? So then I noticed it was running better with this connector off, the throttle sensor. But so what I did is I said, well, let me get a new coil and a new throttle sensor. But the first problem I had is the bottom screw stripped out. It's only an aluminum screw, so I couldn't get that out. So then I said, screw it, I'm going to replace the ignition coil. And guess what? Problem solved. This thing is running so good. I don't have to advance my ignition timing. Everything is running great. So if you're going to do a tune-up on this thing, the key to it is, I think it was $49. Replace the ignition coil. You might have to drill out the screws that are holding the ignition coil in place. Now, to get the ignition coil out, you got to take this box out here. It's really hard to you got to move it off to the side as much as you can. And then there's a plastic cover. There's only 2 screws holding out. Take that. No, actually that snaps off. Snap that off, and then you'll see 2 bolts to take that whole assembly off. And make sure you take your connectors off. Don't pull on the wires, pull on the connector. And then to get the ignition coil off that plate, you'll probably have to drill out the screws, retap it, and put some new screws in. And then before you put that whole assembly back, just sand or grind. Make sure it's got a good connection, because I don't know if my ground connection was causing my problems. But problem solved. Get a new ignition coil.